Well, hi Bob, thanks for joining us again. Always a massive pleasure to speak with you. Let's jump straight into it, shall we? A pretty busy week last week. What can we expect to see this week from the main currencies, pound, euro, and of course, the US dollar?
After a choppy week for the markets last week, busy week ahead. For the US dollar, we've got private sector PMI numbers for August. These are prelim figures. Expect services PMI to be the key stat of the day on Monday. Focus will then shift to durable goods and core durable goods orders. And then GDP numbers, second estimate for the second quarter on Thursday, along with weekly jobless claims figures. These will be particularly important numbers. And at the end of the week, we've got personal spending, inflation, and consumer sentiment figures. For the euro, also a busy week. Prelim private sector PMIs for France, Germany, and the Eurozone. Plenty of interest in all of the numbers. Focus will then shift to the German economy. We've got second quarter GDP numbers, IFO business sentiment figures, and GfK consumer sentiment figures in the second half of the week. For the pound, relatively quiet week. We've got the private sector PMI numbers at the start of the week. Service PMI will be key, and CBI industrial trend orders.
Moving over to the commodity currencies, Bob, what should we expect to see from the loonie, Aussie, and Kiwi dollars?
For the loonie, quiet week ahead. RMPI numbers, the only numbers to consider in the week. That leaves the loonie in the hands of market risk sentiment. Obviously, there's COVID-19 and the Delta variant that's a key concern and could impact the economic recovery and demand for crude. For the Australian dollar, we've got new capex and all important retail sales figures. How much impact has lockdown measures had on consumption? And then on the Kiwi dollar, we've got second quarter retail sales figures and trade data. RBNZ stood pat as a result of the sudden lockdown stemming from the one COVID-19 case last week. So these numbers will need to be positive to continue supporting that rate hike that is imminent.
Moving over to the Asian giants, Bob, what should we expect to see that could impact the Japanese yen and the Chinese yuan?
For the Japanese yen, inflation figures are the only stats in the week to consider. Don't expect the numbers to move the dial. Obviously, the Japanese economy continues to struggle, so inflation is going to be the least of the Bank of Japan's concern. For the Chinese yuan, no major stats to consider. PBOC is in action, however, with loan prime rates, we don't expect any shift.
Finally, Bob, we'd like to finish with geopolitics. Obviously, one massive story taking all the headlines this past week. What should we expect to see that could impact the markets going into the week ahead?
On the geopolitical risk front, we've been talking about Afghanistan. Obviously, there's a lot of political fallout there. Will there be any issues for Boris Johnson as the UK Prime Minister? Markets don't like political uncertainty. Biden standing by his decision to pull out, so obviously expect any chatter there to draw plenty of attention. And then elsewhere, we'll be continuing to monitor, obviously, US-China relations and China with the rest of the world. So those are the main areas of focus on the geopolitical risk front. And obviously then there's COVID-19 with Delta variant, any continued rise in cases and further lockdown measures would then test market risk sentiment further.
Well, Bob, thank you very much. Always an absolute pleasure. We'll keep an eye on all of that and we look forward to speaking to you again very soon indeed. And thank you everyone for watching. To find out more and keep up to date with everything else affecting the markets, head over to our Dukascopy TV social media platforms. Until next time, from me and Bob, goodbye.